Guardians and Guardianettes, it is time to take a look at the Red Death. Now, this gun is extremely amazing. It is my personal belief that this is the best PvP pulse rifle in the game, as well as the best PvE one in the game, and I'll explain in due time. But before we get into that, let's look at the kit available, the skill tree available for the exotic Red Death right now. As you can see, I have the 300 attack damage one, only simply because this was the first exotic I ever owned and I never wanted to upgrade it, but we'll move on into this thing. Aggressive ballistics is the way you want to go. Field choke is tempting, but avoid that temptation. Unflinching is so valuable on this weapon. It's easier to aim under fire while using the weapon. Moving over to the middle tree, we take a look at this. We got snapshot, high caliber rounds, and last but not least, the single point sling. Now, all of those are great for PvP. The way you're going to want to rock this thing for PvE and PvP will be the high caliber rounds. Last but not least, Red Death. Each kill heals you and speeds up reloads. Not to mention the front end of this thing is great for stirring Kool-Aid. You see all that? It's amazing. So, this gun is naturally beautiful. You can tell it's unique, even though it kind of looks like one of those traditional kind of auto rifles or pulse rifles. It has the spikes on the side, the skull and crossbones, and the reticle you can see right there. Just the kill counter on the side of the gun. It's just naturally a beautiful looking weapon, and it stands out upon some of the others that just look like duplicates of other weapons. So, I do like the beauty of the weapon. Moving on over to its actual performance and stats, this gun is quite unique in a few categories. First up, it's got 27 rounds in the mag capacity. It's got a 2.2 second reload speed, and it fires at 360 rounds per minute. That's really good for a pulse rifle. Next up, it does 23 damage on a body shot in Crucible and 34 for a precision shot to land, meaning if all 3 of those shots from each individual burst lands, it only takes 2 bursts to kill a person if all precision shots land, and 3 if they're landing on the body. It's got a 0.67 time to kill with those precision shots, and a 1.03/1.16 if they're landing on the body. Now, why is this unique? Why is this special? Pro tip to let you guys know. I mentioned earlier how aggressive ballistics was the way you want to use this weapon. This gun has 34 base damage and 23 otherwise. When you equip aggressive ballistics, it goes up to 36 precision damage and 24 to the body. Now, what that means is the fact that you can actually kill with 5 precision shots and 1 body shot, meaning if 5 of the 6 actually land on the precision and that other one just happens to hit his shoulder, you're still going to walk away with that 2 burst kill, something that you can't have if you're using it in the default way without that aggressive ballistics equipped. Now, another thing that you need to know about this weapon, unflinching is extremely valuable, especially seeing as how you're going to be going up against other weapons that have things like high caliber rounds. Though I've not tested it myself, I am pretty confident high caliber rounds allow the enemies to flinch, which is much more dramatic in PvE because it actually staggers the enemy, kind of keeping them in place and vulnerable, which is why I say if you're using this in PvE, make sure high caliber rounds is also equipped over the other 2. But I would also recommend it for PvP as well, keeping them vulnerable, keeping their shot off target, and making them less accurate kind of gives you the extra upper hand against them because you get to load up your next shot while they're sitting there squealing, and even if they have high caliber rounds, you have unflinching, so it's not going to be that rough of an experience for you, the user. So, moving on over to the middle tree. Snapshot, preference. It's not half bad, knowing, like I said before, getting first burst in is always an intimidating factor in a gunfight. It can often cause an enemy to panic, and that does have value. So does single point sling. This gun is great in medium to long range, and it can be okay in close quarters, but it's not that reliable. Being able to weapon swap is so important to certain users if they do get inside your safety bubble. But of course, high caliber rounds is the way to go on this. And last but definitely not least in its skill tree is the, wait for it, Red Death. Yeah, nobody would have seen that one coming, right? See what you did there, Bungie. This perk is unique, and it's definitely the reason that I say this gun stands out upon the rest. There are other guns that can kill in 2 bursts, like the 3 little words, but they have a slower rate of fire, and they don't have a perk like this. So, why is this perk so valuable? It allows you to be a tank and get a little bit more aggressive than you originally would be able to, because you know at the end of a gunfight, if you're left standing, you're getting full health. That is impressive, and though it's a rumor, I haven't confirmed it myself. Maybe not be a rumor, it may actually be a fact, but I've never tested it myself, but I heard it on the internet, so it must be true. If you actually are building regeneration inside of your actual character tree, so like, you know, you could build agility or toughness, if you're building that, I believe the regeneration thing that triggers with the Red Death perk actually allows you to regenerate even faster, significantly so from what I've heard. But again, something I can't confirm because I've never tested it myself, but feel free to go out there and do it yourself if you want to. Now, The Red Death perk is so useful because it has value and utility in PvE too. Again, why I say it's better for PvE than the rest out there is not only because it is a strong weapon and it has insane impact. It's got a slow fire rate, slow reload, but that means nothing when it has that utility of the regeneration. It's great for things like Nightfall that don't have a burn, or the certain portions of the Crota raid. For example, fighting Crota himself, it allows you to regenerate when killing a Thrall. That is super valuable in certain situations. I still think things like Scout Rifles have the upper hand and are just so much more functional for traditional rock strikes in PvE, but if you were to use a Pulse Rifle, this should be the one that you would use and equip. Now, again, what kind of good person would I be if I was just sitting here bragging about how amazing this weapon is? I need to tell you how to defeat it if you are put up against it. Now, that's something I know a lot of other people won't do, and generally I'm against recommending this other weapon, but it does have a heavy rivalry. It does have a heavy counter, and that is the Thorn. The Thorn is so important because it pretty much nulls out the Red Death perk because it's got that dot damage. That burn over time stops the regeneration in its tracks, meaning so that even if you do happen to lose to a Red Death user and you still got your shot in, you could still sit pretty knowing that, hey, he's not regenerating his health. He's still vulnerable and low for a teammate to come pick him off before that regeneration actually triggers. That is hella amazing. Not to mention hand cannons, in my honest opinion, still dominate the Crucible. Both the Thorn, Hawkmoon, and Last Word are superior to this weapon in my honest opinion, but this is still one of the best guns to go to in the game, and like I said, it has unique utility and advantages, especially on certain maps. It can trump those other weapons that I mentioned. Now, overall rating of this thing. Great for PvE. The regeneration has utility in certain areas. Again, not the kind of gun I'd use in a rock strike, but it does have a pretty unique ability with that Red Death perk. Again, high caliber rounds and aggressive ballistics in both PvE and PvP. And for PvP, this thing is great. One thing that I will give you guys as a tip is learn to finish off the enemy with this. And a lot of times we just want to try to panic and get a melee in or get aggressive and run at a guy and know he's within melee range. Take that time to make the decision and that choice call to actually get the kill, because that regeneration is an extremely valuable thing. It's something you may want to teach yourself to make that kind of judgment call in the moment. With this, I want to thank you guys for watching the video. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like as it supports the video and the series, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what gun you would like to see me review next for you guys. And of course, subscribe for future videos just like this. Have a great evening, guys, and get out there and, use your Red Deaths and your pew-pews.